Senator Inhofe, thanks so much for joining us on AOPA
Well, nice
Live.
to be with you, Tom.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. So this has been an amazing week from a strategy standpoint about trying to move the Pilot's Bill of Rights forward.
It is.
Tell me, where are we at this point?
And you talk about timing. It couldn't be better. I mean, it wasn't orchestrated that way,
right.
but this is where we are now. We have, everybody I think watching this knows about the Pilot's Bill of Rights 1. We passed that 2 years ago.
Right.
There are several frailties, some things where FAA is dragging their feet and other things, NOTAMs and that type. So we have the Pilot's Bill of Rights 2. Now, if anyone wants to read about it in the AirVenture article that came out on Thursday, they have all the details of that, but they also list 54 senators, United States senators. So when I did this, I've been out hustling, trying to get to 60, and I know it's kind of complicated, it's kind of in the weeds discussion, but in the Senate, you gotta have 60 votes. And I have 54 right now, 54 co-sponsors.
Right.
And so I would invite anyone who is interested in helping me to get this thing done, to get that list in Thursday's AirVenture magazine.
Yes.
And you're gonna find who the guys are, the strong supporters of this. And if you don't see your senator's name as a co-sponsor from whatever state you are, call him up and harass him. And timing's important.
It isn't.
Because by Monday or Tuesday of this coming week, we're going to have on a bill that I sponsor, it's the Transportation Reauthorization Bill, an amendment that will be the Pilot's Bill of Rights 2 that we're going to offer, and we're going to try to get it passed. If we're successful, then that will have to be signed by the last day of this month, and it'll be a reality. If it's not successful, we'll have to do it with just a regular freestanding bill.
So, you've been at this for a very long time. Odds on this, which scenario is more likely? Are we going to get it done by the 31st?
Oh, no, I think the scenario, here, let's keep in mind, and the Transportation Reauthorization Bill, the last one that I did was 2005. It's about every 5 to 10 years you do this. And this one is up. We're going to pass it. And the president may have a veto threat. We're going to pass it with enough votes to override a veto. So it's very important to me that we get this amendment on, not that it's really germane to the Highway Reauthorization Bill, but however it can happen, it
whatever
can happen.
It takes.
So everything that is in the bill that our people are looking at, they're familiar with that, is in this amendment. And that's the fast way of doing it. Now, if that doesn't happen, there's a plane flying over when I said this before, don't despair, because our job, if you get me 6 more sponsors while I'm here, and my appeal is specifically, get the AirVenture magazine, the free one that comes out every day on Thursday, and they list all 54 of my co-sponsors, and if you don't see your senator there, we need to have 6 more, and you can call and help it. We did this way back, Tom, been about 10 years ago, when Bob Hoover, he lost his license by one inspector in the field, and I had to pass legislation to get it back. How did I pass that legislation? I came to Oshkosh. This is my 36th consecutive year in Oshkosh. I came to Oshkosh and made this appeal, and we got enough people harassing the different members that we passed the Bob Hoover bill, and I'm doing the same thing right now with the Pilot's Bill of Rights too.
All right, so you're highly practiced in this strategy of using Oshkosh as a way to get votes for aviation bills.
Yeah, people don't understand, you know, there are as many as 500,000 pilots that come up here. A lot of them are single-engine pilots, and they're interested in one thing, and because general aviation has not been getting a fair shake. But for example, Obama is committed to the user fees, and particularly the $100 a flight fee. I mean, things like that, if you're in aviation, you know won't work and could impose a hazard.
Yes.
And so we need to use the people who do understand. There aren't many pilots in the United States Senate. I always mention one in particular, a new senator that we have, Joni Ernst from Iowa. Anyone who's watching from Iowa knows this. She and her husband have an FBO called Red Oak in Iowa, and she's been a big help to me in gathering up some of the, she's a good-looking gal, so she has an appeal to a lot of these guys that I don't have.
I wonder how that could be.
But you know, when you look at the Pilot's Bill of Rights, and it's important for people to know just what all is in it, we're just talking about one thing, and that is getting this thing on the strategy necessary to pass it. The third-class medical issue is one that is the hardest nut to crack in this thing, because it allows the bureaucracy, the FAA, to go into Senate offices and say, this could endanger, this could cause accidents. We know that that's not the case. We know that when the lighter aircraft were subjected to the exemption from the third-class medical, there's not been one loss of life, there's not been one injury.
Right.
And so all we're doing is taking what is already in the law and extending it on up to aircraft that is 6,000 pounds, 6-passenger at the most, and we've moved the 14,000 ceiling up to 18,000 now.
Oh,
and so
welcome.
if it's good for one group, it should be good for the other. But that's been the hardest thing to get across.
Were you surprised by the Airline Pilots Association coming out opposing third-class medical reform?
Well, I was, and I was disappointed. I know an awful lot of those guys, and some of our best friends have been the air traffic controllers, and I'm going to visit them when I'm up here. It's just that we don't have the luxury of time to go back and try to convince those who have supported us in the past to continue supporting us.
Right.
And we, now as far as the Airline Pilots Association, the surprise there is they would be subjected prior to they were with me on the first bill, the Pilots Bill of Rights 1, because they know that just by the whims of one examiner in the field, they could lose their ability to make their career, and so they were supporting. For some reason now, someone's talked them out of it. Yeah. I'm not surprised. We've got the votes to do it. If we come up here at Oshkosh with an additional 6 to reach the number of 60 co-sponsors in the United States Senate for either the amendment that would be this coming week or the bill that would be in the weeks to come, we'll get it passed.
Good, and we'll look forward to that.
So let me compliment the AOPA. You and the EAA both, when you put on your full court press just a few weeks ago, the number of co-sponsors I had jumped by 19.
Wow.
So I have you to thank, AOPA, for the efforts that you made, and I thank you very much for that.
Right, and we thank our AOPA members for being so proactive in that.
That's right.
Yeah.
We are.
So just one more thing about your trips to Oshkosh. 36 years you've been coming here?
36 consecutive years.
Wow.
And
camping.
And my kids also, my sons, 2 older boys and two girls. My sons have always come up. In fact, I'll tell you something kind of funny. Both of them, I'm a flight instructor and still am, both of them did their first solo flight on the way to Oshkosh many years ago. Keep in mind that they're, in the 50s, so they did it on the way to Oshkosh. So I had those fond memories of getting out and saying, all right, if you're old enough and good enough to go to Oshkosh and get into all that traffic, you're going to have to fly by yourself. Yeah. And they did.
Wow, that's wonderful.
So it's very fond memories that we've had. When you try to explain to people things like user fees and all that, unless you're a pilot, unless you know your contributions to what's happening to the economy of this country, you'll buy into that stuff. And by the way, I have to say there's some really good people in the FAA, but it's also a bureaucracy. The FAA, you explain to me if their total budget was $9.6 billion in 1990, and it's now increased by $15 billion, or by 15, actually, yeah, $15 billion, or 60%. And yet they have fewer airplanes and fewer pilots out there. What are they doing? Well, that gives them more time for a bigger bureaucracy in Washington to lobby against my bill. So keep in mind, it's not fun to take on the bureaucracy, but sometimes it's necessary. Yeah,
well, we appreciate your hard work on that and all the strategy that's going into it. Yeah, it's wonderful. Well, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, and I hope that people will remember, if they want to get the list of people to find out if they're senators or co-sponsors, it's very easy. They're all listed in yesterday's AirVenture.
All right, just 6 more to go. Thank you, Senator, for joining us.
Thank you, Tom, very much.